Hi everyone, this is Jim Tolles. I'm a spiritual teacher and I blog regularly at spiritualawakeningprocess.com if you're new to me. Today I want to talk about the feelings of being lost and apathetic after awakening. Now I use awakening in a very specific sort of way, so I don't use it in the general way that a lot of pop culture is using it. And the way that pop culture is using it in the spiritual world is that you're going through a process. That's not how I use the term awakening. It's this interesting thing where in awakening we touch that depth of truth within us and things arise. So when I use the term process, that's usually what I'm talking to. And what everybody else is generally speaking doing is going through the conscious path. This is also beautiful. I'm just making a difference here so you understand how I'm using this term. And in general, I always encourage people to understand their own definitions and to question other people's definitions because we're not using the same words even though it sounds like it. So that initial awakening that I talk about, there's this dramatic shift. And you know it's true, and that abides. It abides because it is what you already are. And that truth stays with you, and it moves you, and it gradually grows and brings new lessons into life and new awareness. And it almost seems like it's doing it to you. And the unconscious ego will feel like that. And where the unconscious ego still holds on, because it doesn't usually get eradicated completely but for any of us. It's like pieces of it go away, and usually the pieces that go the easiest, we don't even know what they are. So like there is a whole bunch of stuff I'm sure just flushed right out of my system in August of 2007, and I can't tell you what they are because I didn't have to work on them, think about them, or really do much of anything. And that is the beauty of this awakened energy that you are, is it's much less about doing. But where the unconscious ego holds on, things get really upsetting. And so a lot of times we can feel very apathetic, disinterested in most of the things in life, because what we were interested in before actually wasn't true to us. So going out and drinking and having lots of sex with people we didn't know and doing lots of drugs or working long hours at jobs that we just wanted to get lots of money from and didn't really care about. Suddenly we have no interest in these things. But we go into that place of feeling apathetic because a part of us still holds on, thinking we should feel good about them. So we try to do these things again and it just doesn't feel right. Or maybe for those who are really sensitive, you start to feel very sick and upset, or your energy just crashes and you have no energy. You can be very emotional in kind of an unhealthy way. There's all levels of emotionality. But emotional in the unhealthy way is you're just in this sort of poor me space where you're super drained and you're not feeling good about yourself. And so in that respect, what your emotional state is telling you is you need to take care of yourself. So this can happen, and then there's these feelings of being lost again because the ego uses reference points to know if it's succeeding. And in the awakened space, there's no success or failure. It doesn't work that way. And so if you take away these reference points, that unconscious ego is like, well, am I going someplace? Am I doing it right? Where am I? What should I be doing? Shouldn't I have a life purpose now? Shouldn't everything have like a meaning? And of course, meaning is an ego creation. When I do this work with people, it's not because this is my meaning for life. It's just because of what's arising right now. It feels good. If it stopped feeling good, and feeling good I'm using very loosely. You have to be very careful about thinking that feeling good in the spiritual sense is always pleasurable. So I suppose I should probably just say it feels true to me. When it no longer feels true to me to be a spiritual teacher or to do this type of work, I won't. And that's where you will start to go naturally. And actually you do want to grow some direction. Most people have something that feels true for them to offer to this world to share. But you usually have to go inward first. And so at these times of apathetic feelings and feeling lost, it really is an encouragement to go even more deeply within. There's a way that sometimes people try to move out into the next thing before they've really finished the inner work. And so their energy and most of where they are doesn't want to move out. And so it creates this split. A lot of apathy and feeling lost really is like accentuating old splits, this unconscious way of living in the conscious way that you need to be, or what's arising for you. So it's like two horses dragging you in two different directions. So you don't really have enough energy for either. This can also make most things and activities feel really indifferent to you, even the ones that can be healthy for you, because that old other ego is like, well, I shouldn't want to do this, or I'm sick of this, or yada, yada, yada. So like meditation, working with a spiritual teacher, reading spiritual texts, finding sound healing help on YouTube, any of these types of things that, consciously you start to see how they really help support you. Like the old ego may just get sick of it, not want to do with it, and it starts to create these stumbling blocks to the very support that you need. this is an important time to notice what those stumbling blocks are. What's still coming up that stops you from being in a place that really supports you? Some of the basic ideas are like, I need to make money to survive, but it really is always about this moment. So are you being taken care of now? If you aren't being taken care of now, then this is a time for taking conscious action, because some people, you will be working with victim identities that just want to just kind of be passed out all the time. So for you, like, there's often the times where you need to do more for yourself, that doing becomes very conscious, and it's a different type of doing, as opposed to maybe if you've been letting people do things for you your whole life, or getting other people to do stuff for you. Now the doing is actually, you know, more important for you to do it from a conscious place. And where those of you who've been doing lots of things, it usually ends up being a reverse lesson of like, you have to do less. And if it means, you know, you have to go live with your parents or have friends that support you, or maybe there's some sort of a spiritual retreat center that has work shares that can work out for you. There's a lot of different options out there, but the ego, of course, will tell you to do whatever you've done in the past because that's what worked for you, even if it didn't work for you, right? And so if it didn't work for you, it's like you were doing these jobs that you absolutely hated. And of course, if you try to do that, you have no energy for it. And so suddenly you feel apathetic and lost even more. But you start to recreate these old walls. And so this is one of those deft touches to the work, to know when we're recreating walls again and where we're just kind of doing what we need to survive, you know. And it's not as hard to get to as the ego wants to make it out, because there's a lot of things we also don't need to waste our resources on. The latest clothing trends, the latest technology. I mean, we're full of so many lies. You don't need a television with 900 channels. Nobody watches all 900 channels. And even if you had the stupid thing on 24/7, you know, you still wouldn't watch all of them. Right? So this is a waste of your energy, of your resources. And so there's a way that if the money is kind of, and it tends to be a big one for a lot of people, being one of those issues where you feel like you need to do something, but you don't know what to do because everything feels wrong to you. Just be more mindful of where your energy and your resources are going, and make sure that they're being appropriately used. And then, you know, every now and then, the right spiritual caretaker shows up that says, you know what, I can see that you're in a really deep process, and I feel called to support you. This happens. And I've had friends where this has happened for them. But where you can consciously, you know, encourage that sort of thing to arise for you, I think that's important. So that's just one of the different ways where we feel like we're still trying to honor this world we're in, and we don't know how to do it. Don't let the mind turn it into something insurmountable. That's just the unconscious ego at work again, and it's where you want to go more deeply into yourself and say, okay, so what's creating this impasse? What's creating this feeling of apathy, of feeling lost? Because a lot of you, what you will find is you really don't want to do anything with the world. And during this specific awakening transition, this is why I defined it earlier, you kind of are playing catch up on a lot of old issues that you need to deal with until you go into your natural growth cycles. And so there's kind of this space where we go through the dissolving the shadow, you know, dealing with the darkness inside, and we're still kind of identifying with that old unconscious ego. And at some point, we kind of switch, and then we're more into embracing our light. Now, both are still happening in both segments, but there's just kind of that flavor. And that's been my experience. And yours may be different, and that's fine too. But after you kind of move through those segments, then you kind of come into your natural growth cycles for life, and things can make it difficult or easy, and that's just life. You'll learn things, you'll grow naturally, you'll go into rest cycles, and because you're not resisting yourself, you just flow. You know, that's the beauty of how this evolves for most of us. And it may not evolve that way for you. It's like I can't really give you hard rules or hard lines that this will happen and this will happen, right? And I know there's some of that old ego in you wants to like grab onto someone and say, this is what's going on, right? And so please hold these words lightly. Stay in tune with your inner knowing, because you know what's right for you, and that's how you should always listen to these videos and anything else from any other spiritual teacher. Find out what's resonating for you. But ultimately, as you go within, as things self-nurture, this space of feeling lost and apathetic goes away. Because the thing that wants a certain meaning or a certain direction starts to die out. Let that thing die out. Trust and have faith that the arising in you, that intelligence in you, will tell you when you need to act, when it's time to go meet new friends, to call in a lover into your life, to do anything. Because it is so natural, so intelligent, and there's a way that it's so easy at times that we almost don't believe that. So these are some thoughts about being in that space of lost apathy after awakening. It too shall pass. Just keep going more deeply into yourself and trust the process. Once again, my name is Jim Tolles, and down in the comment section you can find some other blog topics I've written about this subject.